For Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. In a historic move, President Joe Biden has dropped out of the 2024 race for the White House Sunday, ending his bid for re-election following a disastrous debate with Donald Trump that raised doubts about the 81-year-old's cognitive ability and fitness for office. Just 4 months before the November election, the president quickly endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris to take on Trump and encouraged his party to unite behind her. Harris is scheduled to deliver remarks from the White House today. She would be the first woman president and second Black president of the United States. A party's presumptive presidential nominee has never stepped out of the race so close to the election. Biden's departure from the race makes Donald Trump the oldest presidential candidate in U.S. history. The move is seen as an attempt to galvanize voters to the polls to defeat Trump, but also faces challenges, as Edwin Vieira reports.
A new Democratic nominee could generate a relief rally, not only among Democrats, but perhaps among independents and some alienated Republicans, that there is a different choice than Biden or Trump.
SMU political science professor Cal Jillison says President Joe Biden ending his re-election bid could reinvigorate some discouraged voters. Biden's decision answers calls to step aside many from Democrats in Congress after a poor debate performance last month. But Biden also says it's best for the party and the country if he stays in office until the new president is inaugurated in January. Biden is endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris to take his spot on the ticket. Harris responded by saying she'll work and earn the nomination. The mechanics of a changeover might get messy. No nominee is formally selected until the Democratic Convention delegates vote, and other candidates could push for a contested process. Biden would probably release the delegates' pledge to him, urging them to choose Harris, but Republicans say they intend to sue, arguing that ignores the millions of votes cast during the primaries. Harris has already been campaigning hard. At a recent event in North Carolina, she said Republicans are making empty claims of being the party of unity.
You cannot claim you stand for unity if you are pushing an agenda that deprives whole groups of Americans of basic freedoms, opportunity, and dignity.
University of New Mexico law professor Josh Kastenberg says Harris would likely face an onslaught of racist and sexist comments.
If you think about 2016 and the amount of misogynistic content directed against Hillary Clinton, you're going to see that even more so now in regard to Harris. Anti-feminism, misogyny, racism.
I'm Edwin J. Vieira for Pacifica Network and Public News Service.
Republicans are readying the attacks. New York Representative Elise Stefanik said on social media Harris, as Biden's border czar, is to blame for what she calls a crisis at the border, a Donald Trump talking point. Act Blue says it's raised nearly $50 million in 24 hours, nearing the most in a single day for a candidate in support of Harris. She's quickly gotten endorsements from former President Barack Obama and the governors of Kentucky and California. No word on who Harris will pick as a running mate. Trump and Biden were scheduled to debate in September. It's unclear if that date will continue should Harris win the ticket at the Democratic National Convention. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is headed to Washington to deliver a speech before a joint session of Congress Wednesday. About 100 protesters rallied at the Ben Gurion airport, demanding he strike a hostage release deal with Hamas. Thousands rallied in Tel Aviv over the weekend, including family of dead hostages, making the same demand. 2 more hostages have died in Hamas custody. Some 120 are believed to be still in captivity. This as Israeli strikes in Gaza killed 64 Palestinians over the weekend, leaving the death toll at more than 39,000, according to Gaza's health ministry. Israel Saturday also struck Yemen after a Houthi strike at Israel killed an Israeli citizen, indicating the conflict in the Middle East is widening. In Gaza, Israel's military today ordered the evacuation of the Al-Mawasi designated safe zone, saying Hamas militants are now there. The Center for Constitutional Rights is urging the U.S. Justice Department, Human Rights and Special Prosecutions sections to investigate Netanyahu for what it says is genocide, war crimes, and torture in Gaza. The letter came Friday when the International Court of Justice found Israel's occupation of the Palestinian territories post the 1967 borders violates international law. Eileen Alfandari reports.
The International Court of Justice said Israel's occupation of Palestinian lands is illegal and called on Israel to evacuate all its hundreds of thousands of settlers. Court President Nawaf Salam.
By 11 votes to 4, is of the opinion that the State of Israel is under an obligation to bring to an end its unlawful presence in the occupied Palestinian territory as rapidly as possible.
The court also ruled that Israel should make reparations for the damage it has inflicted on Palestinians in the occupied territories. The court said other member states of the United Nations have an obligation not to facilitate Israel's unlawful behavior. The BDS, Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions Movement, urged other countries to impose a military embargo against Israel and to adopt other targeted sanctions. Palestine's United Nations envoy Riyad Mansour said legal scholars would dissect the 140-page court decision to set the stage for further action at the United Nations in the continuing fight for justice.
For ending this occupation as quickly as possible.
Israel's parliament voted overwhelmingly on a resolution opposing a Palestinian state, saying it would be a, quote, existential threat to Israel. I'm Eileen Alfandary.
Airlines continue to struggle to restore operations after a faulty software update caused technological havoc around the world, resulting in several airline carriers grounding flights. Delta Airlines chief executive said in a statement Sunday, flight cancellations continue as the airline tries to recover, noting operations resulted in more than 3,500 Delta and Delta Connection scrubbed flights. It's been offering waivers to affected customers. The Environmental Protection Agency is awarding $4.3 billion in grants to fund projects in 30 states to reduce climate pollution. The money will go to 25 projects targeting greenhouse gas emissions from transportation, electric power, commercial and residential buildings. I'm Christina Onestad reporting for Pacifica Radio.